Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Wednesday, which means a new video, and today we're going to be ranking the competitive solos, duets and trios competed by The Next Step. However, there are a few guidelines that I need to tell you before I give my ranking. So firstly, these are only the competitive ones, like I've said. So for example, I'm not including the trio that Giselle, Amanda and Talia did in Studio A. I'm not including Jackie, Summer and Rochelle's trio that they did at the convention. The guidelines for it has to be performed in front of at least 3 judges. It has to be competitive, so like in a stage environment and not just a convention environment. And also I'm not including those by other studios, even if they were on The Next Step previously. So like Daniel's national solo, for example, I'm not including that because he wasn't competing for The Next Step. Yeah, you get the gist of it. It has to be from The Next Step, and it has to be in front of judges, and it has to be competitive. Also, I'd like you to remember that this is purely my opinion, so if I say one that I think isn't great and you think it's amazing, that's absolutely fine. Just respect the fact that everyone has different opinions, and hopefully you can understand why when I give my reasons. So at the very bottom, I don't know how many I've got, so we're just going to say bottom. This will probably be, well, I don't think people would argue against it. I have Noah, Piper and Rochelle's trio that they competed at the qualifier in season 4. Now obviously in this qualifier trio, Noah was injured, so he was dancing with an injury. It wasn't very clean. He dropped people in their lifts, but I also feel like it wasn't very cohesive as a trio. I think that they've done like better dances, like for example when they're rehearsing on Parallels in Studio A, that was very cohesive and they used each other well. This dance, I feel like it was 3 solos for a lot of it, and then they just came together randomly when they needed to do a lift, so that's why it's at the bottom for me. Above that, we have Giselle, Talia and Amanda's trio from season 2 that they competed at the competition. I think it was just a random trio competition, wasn't it? First off, I really wish that they all tied their hair back and had the same hairstyle. I feel like if they'd all had a slicked back ponytail, it would have looked so much cleaner. Also, I feel like this dance just had too much unison for my liking. There isn't an extended dance available, I don't think, because I had to use the ones on YouTube. But yeah, it just seemed like it was all the same choreo they were doing. There wasn't much variation in it, and it just didn't impress me. I think especially because they were chosen after the swing trio they did. I thought that trio was amazing. This one kind of took a step down and I didn't like it as much. Then we have one that will probably be disputed, and that's season 6, Noah and Rochelle's duet. This was their ballet duet, and yeah, it was good for ballet, but I have a few things that I just didn't like about it, honestly. It just isn't my favourite, and I just wish that at some point we had seen them compete a contemporary acro hip-hop style duet rather than sticking them in these styles that aren't their like primary styles. Like in season 4 they had a jazz duet, and neither of them have really done jazz before on the show like properly and expressed that they enjoyed it. And then in season 6 they had a ballet duet, so it's just like they never get to actually do their potential and show what the style that they're actually the best in. I know they're very good at those styles, but yeah, it's just not my favourite. Also for this dance, it was kind of said that, oh, Rochelle's lost her lyrical eyebrows and she's finally showing emotion. I just really don't feel like she did that much. I feel like she would have danced the exact same if the plot hadn't been there, that she was meant to lose her emotion, because all she really did was smile at Noah when they were looking at each other, and I just didn't see it. I didn't feel connected to Rochelle. I didn't feel her sadness in the dance. And I also didn't like how she wiped away a tear as she started to dance. I just feel like that was very out of character for Rochelle, because, you know, once you're on stage, you're performing, and that was Rochelle, not her character. For positives though, I did like that you could see the trust that Noah and Rochelle had between them. Like in the little lifts they did, they looked very easy and clean because they both trust each other. And also the movement was very clean, very technical, and they are very advanced at ballet. Like I personally preferred to watch Noah in that dance than Rochelle, because I don't like Rochelle's costuming or her makeup, and I don't feel like she's pushing out of her emotional zone or anything. I think Noah is amazing in that dance though. So yeah, it's just not my favourite performance, but if you really like it, that's fine. Above that, we do have a Rochelle routine, and this is Rochelle, Becca and Josh in season 2. Now, I think it says a lot if I'm ranking a J Troop dance above an A Troop dance when they both competed at the same time. So this routine, I quite liked it. I think the musicality was really good, and I enjoyed seeing younger dancers perform. However, I think Becca was just sat down for way too long, and she stood really awkwardly. I know that was her role, like she was an audience member, but I just feel like if they'd pulled her in from the wings or something, it would have looked a lot cleaner, because she was just sat there for like nearly half of the routine. Also, I think the tricks are really good, especially for their age. Becca and Rochelle really did work well together, and Josh had some really cool moves as well. I just liked the routine. It's just not as good as other ones for me because of Becca sitting down and obviously their J group. Then we have Alfie and James's duet to Rivalry, and I felt like this was two solos happening at once for the majority of it, and while there was unison and clear planning in places, it seemed like too much of a real battle between them both, rather than them battling against the other studios to try and win this qualifier. Some of the tricks they did do were pretty cool though. I just think that it seemed a little bit like half-hearted, and like they weren't really in it to win it, they were more just battling against themselves. So next we have our first solo, and this is season 4 Sloane's solo that she competed in the freestyle round at regionals. I think this is definitely Sloane's best performance that she did in season 4. I was rooting for her. I was like, wow, how have we never seen this version of Sloane before? She really like brought everything to it, and this was probably the first time I wasn't just a bit underwhelmed and just expecting her to perform like that, because it really did blow me out the water. I've put it above Noah and Rochelle's routine. I mean, people are gonna probably flip about that, but I put it above their routine because for me, I was impressed seeing Sloane's performance. I wasn't impressed seeing Noah and Rochelle's. I was more impressed with the fact that they had an whole episode named No Shell, and it was about them and their relationship. Like, I was more impressed with that than the actual dance itself. I also think her facials were really good, and she performed really confidently, and her moves were really sharp, and I liked that she didn't have too many fancy tricks in it, like she couldn't do them, but that didn't mean that solo was necessarily bad. I think it's just a shame that, you know, she got disqualified for it. Skylar's solo at the season 4 convention is next. I thought this was a little bit messy, and everything was kind of just thrown in as a desperate attempt to try and win, which kind of made sense because she was improvising, because Riley and James couldn't decide the things and everything. I felt like there was a lot of moving around to kind of buy time in the song, but her back handsprings, her aerials, and her headstand cartwheel thing were really good. I just don't think that these can compensate for the other things I didn't like so much. So then we have another season 4 performance, and that is Amanda, Michelle and Amy's trio to Elevator. I loved the use of the prop, however I feel like in places it made the routine a bit messy. I think you can tell that in certain places there was set things that they needed to do, and then the transitions between them were where it lacked a little bit. I also like that it wasn't completely trick heavy. Like, we have Amy, who is really good at contortion and flipping and stuff, but she didn't really do a lot of that. I liked how no one looked like the weak link and everyone complemented each other. I also think that the song and the costumes complemented each other well. I personally am not a fan of the fact that they were really long and full length. I would have liked it if maybe they had shorts and a leotard instead, seeing as it kind of acro, contemporary and whatever. And I think the rope kind of got caught on them a few times as well, so that probably wasn't the best decision. But I do think that they fit the backdrop and the song and everything. It all looked cohesive. Also, Amy didn't really cover when Michelle fainted, and I mean, I'm not expecting her to, because I mean, I'd be a bit shocked as well, but I think as a performer, she could have just carried on, and I liked how Amanda didn't really give it two looks. She just ran over and just pretended. Like, Amanda had good professionalism there, and that was obviously Amy's first competition with the next step, so it's fine, but yeah, Amy didn't really cover it too well. Then we have another season 4 routine, and that is Noah and Rochelle. Again, I'm sorry, No Shell stands, but I'm just trying to be objective. This routine in season 4 honestly wasn't my favourite. I didn't like it that much, and it's not memorable for me. I feel like making Noah and Rochelle do a jazz routine when they could have just done a killer contemporary acro routine, it was a wasted potential, really. I don't really get why you tell them to do a style that they're not proficient in. I also feel like it was more of a performance routine than a competitive routine. They didn't put their best tricks in, and I feel like if you're competing at regionals, you would put all of your best tricks in to try and beat the other teams, whereas this one was more just performing. There were some cool tricks though that did impress me. Like, I liked it when Noah flipped Rochelle up on his shoulders, when Rochelle did the splits in front of Noah and then he flipped her back up. That was really cool, but it just wasn't the best for me, and it isn't memorable. It isn't great. And also, I really don't like Rochelle's costume in this dance. I don't like the dress that she wore, and I don't like her hair. I don't understand the hair at all. I've put Summer's convention solo next, and I love the song Fire with Fire, but I just don't think this was Summer's best performance. There were some moments I felt looked messy, and I wasn't a fan of the costuming either. Her energy was flawless though, and you can definitely tell she wanted to win, and I particularly liked her front walkover thing, and I thought that was really impressive because we'd never seen her do this before. But I just think overall this solo was a little bit rushed, and Summer was probably capable of something cleaner. Then we have our season 7 routines. So, Ozzy's solo that he competed in the resurrection round, it was musical theatre in style. However, I don't feel like it was musical theatre. I mean, he woed, so probably not. Now, the extended version of this dance isn't out yet when I'm filming this. It might be out by the time you're watching, I'm not sure, but I'm going off what we saw in the episode. I think it was a competitive routine. You could tell that Ozzy wanted to win, and you could tell he was giving that dance his all, which I like. However, I don't think it should have scored as high as it did. Like, I don't think it should have maybe scored higher than Rochelle. Well, no, actually, it could have, but I just don't like how all those dancers just got 90s and stuff out of 100. For season 7, we then have Rochelle's Dancemania solo, the one that she actually performed on the show. And you're probably thinking, what? Rochelle was amazing. Sure, that's your opinion. I do think the routine started very strong, and I liked the musicality and how sharp she was, but I feel like she walked around way too much and it didn't really have a clear ending. She did like a back bend and then just smiled and laughed and she came out of character again. And I feel like if you're on TV, and especially for Rochelle, who is so like competitive and she doesn't like to tell a story or whatever and go out of her shell, she should have froze in the back bend until the audience started clapping, then got up like a proper performer would, because you know, you don't just get up as soon as you finish performing and walk off the stage, do you? It just wasn't amazing for me, and I just feel like we all expected the solo. It wasn't anything that blew us out the water. I don't want to say I'm getting tired of Rochelle's performances, but I just want her to bring something different. Like, I don't want to just expect her to do a 540 in every performance, which she usually does now. I want her to surprise us and bring these brand new tricks, and even if she just dulled it down on the tricks and showed us more of her like transition movements and stuff like Briar does, because I much prefer Briar's dancing to Rochelle's. Yeah, that's just my opinion though. For me, it really did seem like she would have choreographed that solo like the night before in her hotel room because she left her team the day before, and I feel like, yeah, that's realistic, but that's why it's so low on the list. So next we have our internationals routine, and I have season 3 Giselle. So I enjoyed seeing Giselle do more of a contemporary acro routine, and I would have liked to see Rochelle do something like this. Maybe not competitive, because obviously if you're competing you want to do your best, but I would have liked to see her do this at some point. I think it was just nice to not see Giselle throw all of her weird contortion things in and actually just feel the movement and make everything really, really smooth. I enjoyed watching it. I also think she used the space really, really well, because that stage at internationals was absolutely huge and Giselle really did own the whole space, and it didn't look like she was out of her depth or anything. She looked very confident. Her energy was also up all the way through, and it looked like she knew what she was doing. Also, obviously, if you compete at internationals, you want to give your best, but I know that Giselle was stepping in for Riley. She wouldn't have got to change the song or whatever, because that would have been queued up already. So I like how she stepped up to the plate, and I think she did a really good job. However, I think it could have been better if Giselle actually did her potential and threw in all of the like crazy stuff in, did a more jazzy song maybe, but I liked seeing her do a contemporary acro style dance. Then we have the one that is probably going to be the most controversial on my list. I'm sorry. Then I have season 3 Flying. It's James and Riley's duet. Just wait a second, don't click off yet. Basically, I put this here. Basically, I do really think you could feel the emotion with this dance. It's definitely one of the most emotional dances ever been on The Next Step, possibly the most. But I feel like for an internationals routine to like win and be the best studio in the world, they could have done a lot more with it, and I feel like they both have tricks that they could have put in it. If you look at their season 2 routine, which was a lot more cohesive, well, I've just given away what's above this, but things like James's tricks, I feel like he was dulled down to kind of match Riley and make it a contemporary routine. If they'd done a contemporary hip-hop routine like they did in season 2, it could have shown the best of both of them, whereas I feel like James couldn't really give his potential. I think the most impressive thing in this dance for me were the lifts, but there was too many of them in my opinion. It felt a lot like, oh, we're gonna dance in unison here, then I'll run and we'll do a lift, then we'll dance and do different things that complement each other, then we'll do another lift. It seemed, I don't know, I did really like the routine, but if I'm having to rank it above against other ones, that is what let it down for me. It also felt more of a performance piece than a competitive routine. I feel like that routine would have been great to do if they weren't competing for the internationals title and it was like after they've already won, they do a performance piece at the end. That would have been great. It would have been super emotional. But if you're trying to win a title, I feel like you just need to throw everything in and really give it 100%, even if you want to be emotional and do this beautiful routine. You've got to prioritize, do you know what I mean? I also feel like this didn't show them at their peak individually, it showed them at their peak as a couple. So that was Jiley's best performance as a couple in terms of showing their chemistry. However, it didn't showcase them individually well enough. I did think that it deserved to win over Stockholm's performance though, so I'm not going to take their internationals win away from them. So then we have another season 7 dance, and I just know that the Rochelle stans are going to go crazy at this, but I'm putting Summer's Dancemania audition above all of those dances. Basically, I feel like even though I wasn't a major fan of the dance, when I rank it objectively, it is better than the others for the following reasons. Basically, the song really suited her performance. It was called My Power, and she was going out on her own and trying to like find out if she was worth anything, I guess, because everyone had gone against her. She felt like she was pretty worthless at the studio. You know, she'd been basically bullied last year, and this year no one was giving her any respect. So I liked how the song was My Power, and I liked that she wore black because it was different for Summer. It wasn't just your typical flowery pink and purple Summer, it was black and glittery. Like, Summer was there to kill it. I also think that Summer's best tricks were in this dance, and we saw things from her we hadn't seen before. Usually Summer just comes out with a lyrical dance and whatever. This one had like elements of hip hop, it had elements of contemporary, of acro. She did a lot of legs, she did turns, she did leaps. I love when she does her box split leaps. I think those are really, really good. I just think it was a great audition, and the extended dance for me is a lot better than what they actually showed on the show, because I remember when I was reacting to this, or I was at least writing things down, I didn't think it was that impressive, but I do really like the extended version. I do feel like the costume could have been a bit fancier, if I'm honest, but she did turn around and do this decision like last minute, so I'm not going to knock her. She probably just pulled something out of her wardrobe that would fit. To improve it, I probably would have just played on the emotion a little bit more, but I like how she actually had a final position. I like how the energy stayed like the same level throughout. I like how she had intention in her face and in her movements, and I just feel like it was a really, really good solo and a really good audition. Above Summer, I have put Rochelle's Dancemania audition. So this is in season 7, and I'm hoping that Rochelle stans will now forgive me for putting Summer above Rochelle's TV performance. But basically, I really like this solo from Rochelle. I like how it started and gradually built up. It wasn't just straight away 540, you know, like we know Rochelle can do a 540, we don't need to see it in every dance. I like how she started slow, she just gave it like some nice jazzy movements, she used her body well, and then I think her first trick was her back handspring into like the split that she did, which was good. It matched the music and it didn't just go straight into it, it built it up and it built up the excitement. I also think the costuming was great. I remember the first time I saw that costume, I was blown away. I think it was amazing. The song choice is also good and relevant to the plot. However, I would have liked it to be a song that we'd never heard before, because it obviously was heard in season 4. And also we heard it on Lost and Found as well. So I just would have liked her to dance to a new song that had the same kind of feel as Do What I Want, but it just wasn't used before. Generally, the reason that I put it so high is because the tricks weren't just all at the beginning and nothing at the end. It really was staggered throughout. She actually held an ending position for this. She started it nice and slow. She graduated when she did all of her best tricks. She put turns in there. It wasn't all 100% acro. I just feel like it was a very strong dance and perfect for auditioning to be on a TV show. If I do have to critique it though, I will say I would have liked it to be a bit more expressionate, even if it was expressionate in a jazzy way. So even just like a few winks, a little bit of like sass with it. I feel like Rochelle keeps a very straight face when she's dancing. So that's my only critique. So then we have Jiley's duet from season 2. So Jiley stans, redeem me here. So I love the costumes and the plot of Whirlwind, and I think the characterization was really good. However, I don't know if it would have been better for Riley not to wear the point shoes, because as much as I liked seeing her on point and stuff, I feel like everything she did could have been done in barefoot, and also it would have allowed her to do a lot more, because I feel like it kind of restricted her in a way. For example, she did a lot of hip hop with James in the unison section, but I feel like she really could have just brought a little bit more to it if she didn't have the point shoes on her feet, because obviously they're not the comfiest things to wear. I just feel like as pretty as it looked, being barefoot might have helped her out a bit more. Once again, it also didn't feel like a completely competitive routine. It felt like a performance piece, but I think it did kind of work because Nationals, each dance did kind of have a theme to it. I don't know, I don't really know how to describe it. It felt like they were giving their all and performing as well as being competitive, but I feel like it could have been a little bit more competitive and a little less performance. That's what I'm trying to say, yeah. So in third place, we're narrowing it down, guys. We have season 2, Eldon's solo. Now, I've never been much of a fan of Eldon's hip hop dancing, but I will say for this routine, I was very impressed with it, and you can tell I think overall for season 2 nationals, you can tell that everyone put their all into every single performance. I love the musicality that Eldon had with the hip hop in this dance. He was very sharp, he was very on beat. He also fused the hip hop really well with contemporary. I like how it wasn't just hip hop on the fast bits and contemporary on the slow bits. It really was, he'd do some hip hop moves and then he'd do a turn and then he'd do a bit more hip hop. It was just really nice and he did it very well. His energy in this dance was brilliant, and I liked how like the plot of the dance was him letting go and going out of his shell. Like he took off the sleeves of his shirt and he was free, and he just matched that in his performance. Like the performance started very like, what's this called? Like jittery, staggery, you know what I mean? And then he like turned out of it and he was free and he was doing all these massive movements and he used the space really well. It was just a very good solo. There is, however, one section I'm not a fan of, and I just feel like it looks a bit messy and a little bit like the stamina's gone, but he built it back up afterwards, so I didn't really knock him down for that. I think for this solo, even though we'd seen Eldon dance before, we were impressed with it and we were still surprised. So second place, we then have another season 2 solo, and it is of course Showstopper. So I absolutely loved seeing a fiery, fierce Michelle, and one thing that I think Michelle has over everyone else that's come below her is that you can tell when Michelle is in a competitive environment, she turns into another person and she knows how to work the stage and work the audience. Now, you could say that this is like Michelle being out of character, but I feel like it is very much in character, as she was Miss National Soloist before she even came to the next step, that she knows how to go on stage and put on a front. I just think it works really well and it's something that I commend her for. I also love seeing a fiery Michelle because she did have quite a sad season in season 2. You know, she left the studio, her boyfriend broke up with her other random lover turned up and made her life really sad and whatever. So I liked seeing her kind of turn around and flip in her personality and just have this really happy dance where she gets to show off her talent. The reason I've put it above Eldon's solo is because I feel like Michelle really gave the edge with her performance, and Eldon's was great, but I feel like you can tell that it's Eldon, whereas when you watch Michelle's Showstopper routine, it doesn't even look like Michelle in a positive way. It looks like someone who came to win the competition, and she just, even her facials are just amazing, and I think she really works it, even though her tricks might not be as like extravagant as Eldon's and she doesn't have any hip hop in the routine. But she just, I don't even know how to describe it. She just works the stage and works the audience super well. It's also just a really memorable solo in my mind, and like I think most people would agree with me there. So in top position we have season 3, Eldon. Eldon's solo from season 3, oh my gosh, it is actually one of my favourite ones, so I didn't even care that I put it first position. I adore this solo. I just think it's so beautiful, and like when I watch it, I get emotional watching it. Like when I was trying to rank them all, I was getting emotional watching it. It's just, you really feel the connection with Eldon, and you can really see that he's grown up since season 1 during this solo, and you can also see that he kind of knows it's his last dance for the next step. Also, I just want to commend whoever did the camera angles and the direction for that, because I think the camera angles show him off so well. They really add to the emotion in that scene. Like when he's doing the leg lift and the camera's behind him looking at the audience, and when he does his back handsprings and the camera follows him down stage, upstage, I mean, it just looks so good. I just think Eldon's strength and grace is just hypnotizing all through this dance. You can feel what he's feeling. I like how it wasn't as fast as his season 2 solo, but he still had all the intensity. He really put all of his best moves into it, and I just think the song probably doesn't help how emotional the dance is. I think even on the parts where he isn't necessarily dancing, you still can't even look away. So when he's just standing and ready to do that, I can picture it now, when he's like going towards the stage and he does, I think it's a box split leap or something, I just think it's just beautiful. He used the space also really, really well. I think that's the same with Giselle. Like they both used the space as if it was theirs. I just think that because it was such a raw solo, like he didn't have his flashy costume, he wasn't like wearing a showstopper dress or anything, because it was so raw and he wasn't just doing, I don't know, it wasn't necessarily him being a different person performing. You could tell that it was still Eldon, but he didn't need all the flashy things to prove the way he was the best dancer. And I can't remember if he got male soloist for internationals. I don't think he did he? But I think he should have, definitely, because that is one of my favourite solos. And I'm not even an Eldon stan. Like, ask anyone and watch my videos. I don't even like Eldon that much, but that solo is one of my favourites. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video of me ranking the competitive solos, duets and trios on the next step and competed by the next step. If you disagree with anything on this list, then that's absolutely fine, but this is just all my opinion and people have asked me to do it, so I finally got around to doing it. Yeah, anyway, make sure you like this video, comment down below and make sure you subscribe. We have Guess the Reference again on Sunday. Our guest is, should I tell you? Our next guest is Renee Romolo, who plays Izzy. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you on Sunday, guys.